Hello friends. With the advent of reality TV and celebrity gossip magazines, it sometimes feels like we are only interested in the lives of the rich and famous. But in my work I've come into contact with hundreds, if not thousands, of ordinary people, and I've often been left staggered by some of the amazing stories they have to tell. It really is true that everyone has a story to tell, they just sometimes need help to tell it. It's a privilege when people let you into their lives and tell you their life stories, and it's great to help people access forgotten memories, find their voice and tell their story. Leave your comments. It is important for them to know your opinion. I have 2 kids with my husband, a 14-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. Our daughter has always been a little socially awkward, to the point that we've had her tested since we suspected her of being on the spectrum. Turns out she isn't on the spectrum, she's just a natural introvert. However, this year in school we were thrilled when our daughter made a new friend her age, since that is an area in which she struggles. Long story short, she recently invited her new friend over, with our approval, to have dinner at our house and then spend the night. So, my daughter's friend came over. My husband is usually the cook in the family, and this night was no exception. He made us all a really nice meal. During the course of said meal I asked my daughter's friend, "Are you enjoying the food?" She responded, "Yes. Your husband is a great cook, no wonder you've ended up a bigger woman." The room got quiet for several moments. My husband tried to laugh it off and change the subject, but I wasn't having it. The girl had just leveled a completely uncalled for insult at me. My daughter's friend seemed to realize that she'd messed up, but she didn't say anything else. We finished an awkward dinner in mostly silence, and my daughter's friend did stay the night. This was a couple of months ago. Recently my daughter asked if she could have her friend back over, and I told her, sure, if she's going to apologize to me. When our daughter asked what I meant, I reminded her of what she'd said. My daughter responded that it was over and she didn't want to bring it up again. She then went to her father and asked. He said, sure, but she then told him what I'd said. He came to me and said, daughter's friend, just felt awkward and tried to make a joke. It didn't land. For the sake of our daughter, can't you just let it go? Yes, I could, but the thing is that I just want an apology from the girl. I need to see that she understands how rude she was before I can get on board with her and my daughter hanging out. My husband says that I am being weird for insisting on an apology from a 14-year-old, especially since that girl is such a good friend of our daughter. I think it's weird that I'm still waiting for an apology from that same girl. Seriously. That's all I need. I just need to know that any friend of my daughter is willing to own up to her screw-ups. My parents were married and had me and my brother. My dad had an affair with Kate and Mom and him divorced. Ellie was the result of the affair, and Tommy was born when Dad married Kate. A year later Kate died. My dad's family rallied around my half-siblings and tried to make up for the loss of their mother. My mom shared custody of me and my brother with my dad. He had asked her to include Ellie and Tommy in her life after Kate died, and even told my brother and I a few times that they would be coming to Mom's with us and she'd be their mom now too. My mom never did take Ellie or Tommy into her home. I don't even think she's ever interacted with them. When I look back at moments where everyone was present, she was always one side with her family and Dad was another with his and my half-siblings. Ellie and Tommy, as they have gotten bigger, have expressed all the emotions you might when you don't have a mom but you sometimes share a home with kids who do. They get jealous, sad, frustrated. They have asked for us to share Mom with them. They have wanted to come along when they hear Mom is taking us on vacation. They have wanted us to all spend Christmas together. All kinds of stuff. They also have just Dad's side of the family, since none of Kate's want to be in their lives. But we have both sets of grandparents and aunts and uncles involved in our lives. A few times over the years Dad, or my grandma or uncle have asked me if I don't dislike that my mom wouldn't open her heart to kids who are part of my family. I always said no. Because they are not her kids, and so, it doesn't make sense to me that she would. My dad wanted to try and get my half-siblings' wish to come true for a Christmas where we're all together, which would include my brother and I and our mom. Mom said no, she did not engage with him beyond her no. Ellie and Dad then tried to get me to talk Mom around and I said no and I told them I did not want to talk her around. Ellie got upset hearing that and left. Dad and my grandparents then cornered me later and asked me how can I say that when I know Ellie and Tommy feel left out and that they crave mothering. I told them I don't care if they feel left out because it's not my mom's job to mother them and I would never expect her to do it, and since one can't be fixed without the other thing happening, i.e., them feeling left out can't be fixed unless they feel like they now have a mom and my mom, then I realize it's not going to happen. They told me my mom could, and should, have love for them as her children's siblings. I told them Dad should have thought about that before he cheated on her and got another woman pregnant while he was still married to Mom. Am I the asshole? So I've been divorced from my ex-wife for 10 years. And we have 2 kids together. I remarried a year late while she's still single. I have 3 further kids. I have my sons over every weekend. About 4 years, my ex-wife opened up an online business and she's been making 6 figures. While my wife is a stay-at-home mom and I make $30K to support our family, so you can imagine how this difference has affected our 2 households. They live in a gated community. She drives a 2022 RSQ3, and she and our sons go on 2 extravagant holidays a year. My sons came over this weekend and starting tell me and the girls they're going on a Disney concierge cruise in the summer. My daughters started crying saying, "Daddy, we want to go," and when I looked online for the prices, they're priced at $5,000 per person. It's been all they've talking about non-stop. I feel like their wealth is being shoved down our throats, when we can barely afford heating this Christmas. It's hard not to be hateful, but I sent her a long text saying stop trying to make us feel less than. I also told my sons in private please don't mention holidays or gifts around the girls. She replied with saying it's not her problem how we feel, and when she does nice things for the boys, me and my wife are the last people on her mind. Am I reading into this too much? Or am I the asshole for saying she's spiteful? My sister is getting married next month to my best friend. She always wanted a nice snow wedding in the cabins we used to go to when we were in school. Everything was going fine until she told me it was a child-free wedding. Now, that would be fine with my wife and I because we would just drop off my son and daughter at my wife's parents or with their godparents, but my sister had asked them to be the ring bearer and the flower girl. Apparently, they want the kids to perform their duties at the wedding but then not attend the reception. That means either my wife or I will have to be there with them alone in the cabin while everyone is partying it up. But wait, I'm the best man and will be conducting the reception, so it's just going to be my wife. What about food? My mom will give my wife 20 minutes to come in, grab some plates with food and come back because the mother of the bride can't be missing for too long. So, they expect me to abandon my wife with our kids who are under the age of 7 in a tiny cabin that is not child-proof, where the source of heat is a fireplace and there is barely any cell signal. This is the day after driving for 7 hours with said kids. Not only do I think this is not a safe idea considering it would be the middle of winter, my wife has never been to these cabins and the lack of ability to properly communicate, but also, I think it's incredibly rude to invite someone to a destination wedding where they are only allowed to attend the wedding. Although my wife says she can manage, she's really gullible sometimes and is a little bit of a people pleaser. I refuse. She's not being treated like a guest but as the babysitter for the ring bearer and flower girl. I tried to talk to my sister and the Jack I call my best friend, who always preaches about being there for friends, loyalty and whatnot, but they are not conceding or willing to compromise. I asked if my kids could attend until the toasts, games and food, then all 4 of us would retire to the cabin and let them party. No. If we could go completely child-free and leave the kids behind. No. If I just attend the wedding and retire to the cabin after the wedding. No. My sister is against all of these ideas while the Jack has taken a temporary vow of silence. So, I'm pissed and said I'm not coming, which in turn, began the messages and calls from everyone, my family, the groom's family and our friends. My wife has openly said that she can manage this, but I know that's to keep the peace. My kids are also upset because before asking us, my sister and Jack asked them first to participate in the wedding, and they were really excited because they're close with both of them. With all these calls and messages, I feel I'm going crazy and maybe I'm the asshole instead. So, am I the asshole? Both me and my husband work from home. He works in the basement and I work in an upstairs converted office. I also have a daughter from a previous relationship who lives with us full-time. Anyways, last Thursday, my husband told me that his brother's wife, and nephews would be coming over on what is now today. I immediately told him hell no, as today was my biggest annual meeting with one of our biggest clients, who is a local chain of retailers. I am the associate director of the partnership between our companies, and so I would have to help give a presentation. However, he kept telling me that they had just told him they were coming over. I finally relented but told him that the kids would need to be quiet and could not be upstairs. Anyways, today swings around and I go to get ready. My daughter locks her room so that the kids can't get in. Inside, she has a gaming setup worth over $2,000 of gifts and stuff she has saved up from waitresses. I also locked my doors after I got my lunch. At about 1, they arrived over. I was in the middle of my meeting at this point. While, about 20 minutes later, I hear 2 steps of small footsteps run up the stairs. They immediately start trying to get into my daughter's room, which is right next to my office. I immediately started texting and calling my husband, but he didn't respond. About 5 minutes later, I excused myself to the restroom, just as the kids went into my daughter's room. I kicked them downstairs and told them not to come back. A little later, after I got back to my meeting, I could hear the kids screaming from downstairs. Again, I text my husband and nothing happens. It stayed that way until 4:45 when my meeting was finished. I then went down to my husband's office and just let loose. Among other things, I called him a little pu. I then grabbed my daughter and took her to my parents' house where I will be staying the night. I honestly feel if I am on the edge of divorce. This post may be a mess because I am still worked up. I work in the medical field. I often discuss confidential information with clients and doctors. I am not a doctor myself. In July of this year, I finally had an opportunity for employment that would give me the option of working from home. I sat down with my wife and explained that this was a good thing for us. I would be home 3 more days every week. I would still be going into the office on Tuesday and Thursday, but the other days I could skip out on the commute. I could help with my daughter in the morning and throughout the day. I could help with supper. I could see my 4-year-old daughter more, not all the time of course. I was still going to be working, but our car would be home 3 extra days. My wife could take our car and drop off our daughter with our parents or a sitter if she needed. We say and talk to my daughter and explained that even though I was home I could not spend all my time with her. I explained that if the door was closed she needed to knock quietly and ask permission to come in, and to accept it if the answer was no. My daughter understood, my wife did not. She was constantly coming into the office when I was in meetings. I had to excuse myself to get her out of the room. More than once I saw my daughter trying to keep her out of my room. One time my wife was trying to carry my daughter into the room and my kid was holding on to the door jamb so she didn't get in trouble for coming in when the door was closed. I finally put a lock on the door. She said she didn't like being locked out of a room in her house. I explained that the door being closed and a sign saying that I was in a meeting didn't stop her. She finally got the point, until this Thanksgiving. I was working on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and she needed to go buy something for our meal the next day, and for some reason could not take our daughter with her, or drop her off with either set of grandparents, or a drop-in daycare where we have a spot. She instead decided to shake my locked door and knock until I answered. I muted my meeting, opened the door and told her to leave me alone until the end of the day. She left and texted that my daughter was watching TV in the other room. I talked to my boss and I went back to work at my workplace starting last week. I hate being away from my daughter and my wife. My wife hates being limited to using Uber on the days I'm not home, or depending on our parents. Now she is mad at me for going back to the office. I told her that it's her fault for not understanding that I was working from home, not just playing games in my home office. I feel like an asshole and she says I am, but I am the sole breadwinner for our family. If I got laid off because of her, we would be in financial hardship. For context, my sister can stay here. her dog cannot. I have a 5-person household. My kids are 12, 9 and 6, husband is 31. My sister became homeless recently with her 1-year-old son and her dog. I'm her only option at this point. Our parents are scum and we have no family that isn't estranged. She asked if she could stay here and has admitted there's no plan for the foreseeable future. She doesn't know how long she will be here for. She's only part-time working at the moment, so it's difficult for her to save. I told her she could stay here and so could my nephew, but the dog is not welcome in my home. I have many reasons for this, main one being I don't like dogs, other reasons being I have cats and my sister's dog has already attacked a cat back last year. More reasons. Well, I just don't want it here. I have the space, yard-wise, that's not the issue. I simply don't have the time, energy, or patience for her animal. I'm also not going to be feeding the animal and already know that she struggles as it is. I have no problem helping feed her or my nephew, but I'm not footing an extra bill for a dog. I didn't tell her all of this directly, but she does know my stance on dogs, and she also knows that I felt she should never have gotten the dog to begin with because she's never been what could be considered financially stable. She's had the dog 2 years. All I said was her and my nephew and stay for as long as needed, but the dog couldn't. She was immediately at my throat. Questioning why I felt it was appropriate to ask her to get rid of her son's baby. I told her those were my stipulations and I didn't have the energy to argue the fact, considering I'm already offering up a lot. My boys will now have to share a room just to give her and my nephew a room. She hung up after crying and saying I was being heartless. Am I the problem here?